What's up, guys? Okay, we are at Saturday evening. Now, ordinarily, I work Saturday, or I don't work Saturday evening. Um, I don't work Saturday at all. Saturday's my one day off. I'm gonna focus myself here that I can keep the color going strong. It's wine time, by the way, not coffee time. And ordinarily, I take Saturday off. Saturday's like my one day off, and then I work Sunday again. But I take Monday off. I take every Saturday off, and then I work 6 days a week, and then every month I take one particular day off that has to do with the new moon. New moon's on Saturday, or new moon's on Monday. So I'm going to take that day off too. And we leave this place, this Airbnb, tomorrow around 2:30, and we drive about 25 minutes southeast to a place called Plattsmouth, and we are going to be staying in this weird vineyard. It's going to be like this little boutique vineyard where they have built these kind of semi-permanent tents that you can even stay at in winter. It's going to be really cool. And today, what have I been doing? We did one of our most famous Saturday holiday things, which is we went to Whole Foods and we got a coffee. I love Whole Foods. I love the smell. You know the smell when you walk into Whole Foods and you're like, I'm at Whole Foods again. And my wife made the barista's day by telling her that she had a completely perfect, symmetrical face, which apparently is a big deal to girls. But she was just tickled pink about that. Now, ordinarily I wouldn't tell people this because it's not something that I, pat myself on the back about. But because I'm kind of living my life in the public eye by making, 2 videos a day, I'm going to, because I want to encourage the behavior. We were driving down a street called, ironically, Pacific, in Omaha, which has, Pacific. The Pacific is nowhere near here, and I can readily attest to that. We were driving, and there was this car that it was a Chevy Trailblazer, and the front left tire had popped right off of the thing. And so where the tire normally attaches to had dug into the asphalt and had just skidded like 50 meters. It was really crazy. It was really digging into it. And there was a lady who had wandered away from that. I could see her on the phone, so it must have pretty much just happened. And I kept driving a couple of blocks. We were on our way home. And I said, should I go back? To my wife, I said, should I go back? And she said, who? Because she was looking at her phone. And I said, there was a lady back there who seemed to be in a bit of trouble. And she's like, oh, the car. Because you see cars, cars are on the side of the road frequently. This is the first time that I had seen somebody who seemed to be in a bit of distress. So I said, should I go back? And so we did. And I went back, and the lady was sitting in her car. And I said, do you need help? And she said, yeah, actually, I do. I just tried to call my brother, and he doesn't get off work until 3 or 5. I can't remember which. And basically she had nothing and no one, and this is the type of person who, judging by the state of the car, judging by the state of, that she said she used to live in the area, she still works in the area, and she told me where she lived, and I knew the area, and that it was, a little bit, I could kind of tell that she might be in a stage of life where she didn't have all the money in the world to throw around. Doesn't mean she'll never be. It just means that currently she wasn't. And I said, okay, well, I'm doing quick calculations in my head, how can we make this work? Because the tire was fine. It wasn't, it wasn't flat. It was just that her ex-boyfriend had put it on wrong, and it had just wiggled itself loose and flown off. And I guess the bottom line is that we saw it through. We saw it through to the completion. Eventually, we got her towed. We got her, we got her back home because she, there was work that needed to be done on the car, and there was, other ins and outs that I won't go into. But the bottom line is that we actually stopped, and we made and there was a guy who came out. He lived a couple of houses down the street, And he came out and he's like, hey, you guys need to get off the road because I've seen lots of accidents on this road, this particular road. People are crazy driving around here. And he stayed with us. At one point I said, well, look, I'm here. I've got to be here for the tow truck and all that. So, it was really hot today. And I said, all of us don't need to be out here sweating in the heat. And he said, no, that's fine. I'll stay. And he stayed the whole time. And he was just kind of a constant vigil there. I can't remember what his name was. I asked his name, but I couldn't remember. I can't remember what his name was. But he stayed, even though he went to look and get a jack, and somebody had stolen his jack, so he was no help. And the jack in the car was no good because of the way the road curved. It was the front left tire, so it was up here, so it had popped off. It was leaning down, and there was just no way to get the jack underneath where it would need to go. And in addition, the jack was too tall, and plus she was on an incline, so even if we jacked it up, it probably would have just started to roll backwards. We didn't have anything to wedge against the tires and all that kind of stuff. But he stayed, and he seemed to be a simple guy of simple means, but he was there to help. And what was strange was that he asked me a couple of times, he's like, oh, do you know her? I said, no, I was driving by. He said, oh, well, do you live around here? I said, no, don't live around here, just here on holiday. And he asked me a couple of other questions, kind of basically saying, in essence, why have you stopped to help this woman that you don't know? And I couldn't give him any other reason other than, we were just decent human beings. And my son is currently in a stage where he is framing the facts that come in, because I've taught him that there are facts in life, and we then interpret those facts to mean one thing or another. There is never this girl could say, why does this always have to happen to me? Why do I get involved in such shitty men? The men that I'm involved with, they can't even put a tire on right. They nearly kill me going down Pacific. I could have been killed. Everything bad always happens to me. But really, that's an interpretation of the fact, because the only fact is her tire came off her car. That is the fact. That's the only fact. And then we decide what that means. We decide what that means in our life. And we got into the car, and Jesse is so clever and astute that he got into the car, and I didn't have to say anything. He came to me and he said, okay, let's decide what this means. And this is something that I learned from Tony Robbins, but it only hit home with me recently, so I can't even, I'm not claiming any kind of credit to this. There's so much of what Tony says. It's like fireworks are going off when you're in the room with him, and you're just lucky if you can catch a few sparks. And this is one of those sparks that stuck with me, and I finally understood. And I'm teaching it to my son. He's like, how can this mean? And I've interpreted it, I've repackaged it in a different way for Jesse. I said, every day you decide what meeting your energy is going to go to. Because we have energy based upon certain photographs that you can actually take of things. You can actually see their aura. It's like aura photography. You can see the energy behind what it actually is. And if you can then realize that everything in life has an energy, and that we have an energy, a life force that then connects to things behind the scenes, behind what is physically evident, then you can say, okay, well, actually, it's my energy that is interacting with the energy of the world. And what controls the conversation that my energy has with the rest of the world is my state. And what my state is determined by a decision that I make about my state. What is my state going to be? So I've determined that my state is going to be happy, healthy, wealthy. Jesse has determined that his state is going to be one of phenomenal. So basically, facts will come in, and I will interpret them to mean I am phenomenal. One way or another, I am not going to interpret the fact as anything but further evidence that I am phenomenal. I will not interpret any fact as anything but further evidence that I am happy, healthy, wealthy. Okay? So, Jesse says, how is this further evidence that I am phenomenal? How is this further evidence that I am phenomenal? And I said, well, you know, you were there. Like, he is such a buoyant individual. He's got such a buoyant energy. I said, you were there. Like, this lady was going through a really traumatic experience. You were there. You were lighthearted. You were making things light and fun and breezy. Like, all of a sudden, something that seemed really big and important wasn't. All of a sudden, it was something to be thankful for, as opposed to something to really shit bricks about. And I said, you helped, you brought apples. My wife had sent, she had gone home because she needed to make supper, and she sent back apples and water. I said, you were the guy, you were the apple runner. You ran apples to us, you ran water to us. And she was obviously thirsty because she took everything. You were that guy. So it's just so, and I'm going to filter this back to this guy who happened to stick around the whole day. And I shook his hand afterward and I said, thank you very much for sticking around. Look, I'm not in charge. I just decided to take charge of the situation, because every situation needs somebody to take charge, to say, and oftentimes, as my brother-in-law, if I'm around my brother-in-law and something goes wrong, he's like, okay, this is what we're doing, I'm taking charge. And I'm so thankful for that, because it means generally, more often than not, we're doing something physical, like moving. He and I will move house fairly frequently. And he and I are just in such sync when it comes to that, because he and I have moved so many times. But he's always the guy when it comes to something physical and demanding, and he's the steady, he's the thing that does not allow the ship to really teeter back and forth. And so I stuck around in this particular instance, and I took charge of the situation, and I thanked him for sticking around. And I said to Jesse, further evidence of how you are phenomenal is that we stopped when we didn't have to. We stopped when it was a pain in the ass because it was really hot. We stopped when we had no affiliation to this woman at all. And we restored a lot. I could tell that we had restored a lot of his faith in humanity. I said, after today, he will have a better opinion of humanity. And I knew this guy. I knew this. I could understand where this guy had come from. He had been hurt in his life. He had gone through trauma. He'd probably been made fun of. He'd probably been ostracized. He was still living with his father, and he was probably into his 40s, 50s. He was perhaps not as intelligent as some. He wanted to be a writer, because I am, and he asked me what I did, and I said, I'm a writer. He said, I really would have liked to have done that. I said, well, what do you do now? He said, I lay bricks. That's what my dad did. And I said to Jesse, we have restored a lot of his faith in humanity just by stopping today. And that is phenomenal. That is something that is, because human beings are incredible. We are incredible. We have the ability to change the world with our energy. We have the ability to change the world with the things that we do and the things that we say. We are impacting the world in everything that we do. And I said, Jesse, you were phenomenal today. You were phenomenal. The word, his word. I said, you were phenomenal today. Through what you did, through what we did, and through your own personal touches on everything. Like, he was chatting with the tow truck guy. The tow truck guy showed up, and he was sweating, and he was pissed off, and it was like a Saturday, and why do I need to be here? And Jesse totally got him on side. He was like, this is incredible. What are you doing now? You know, all of a sudden the guy felt like what he did was really, really important. And I said, what you do is so valid, so important, so phenomenal. There's nothing but evidence here. So all of a sudden, based upon his decision to only interpret facts, the fact is her tire came off. As far as Jesse's concerned, the fact is her tire came off, and the fact is Dad decided to stop. Those are the only two facts. And what you choose to do with that, what you choose to do with those facts, the way you choose to interpret those facts, that is what will have an effect on the rest of your life. That is what will have an effect on your day. So, I am about to get to work. It's like, I don't know what time it is, but we have decided today that normally I wouldn't work until the sun goes down. The sun never goes down here, apparently. The sun will not go down until like 10 o'clock tonight. So we're making a call. We're saying that, Saturday's over, and it's time to get back to work. So I've got about 3 hours work ahead of me. I've been recording now for 16 minutes, so 2 hours and 45 minutes of work ahead of me. So that's what I'm going to do. God bless everybody. Stay cool. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, because I'm sure most of you are not working tomorrow, as I will be.